Shareholders in the Anglo-Dutch oil giant Shell have voted overwhelmingly to move the company's headquarters to London from The Hague. The executives say it'll make the payment of dividends more efficient, but critics say it's been driven by strict climate rules in the Netherlands. Our correspondent Stefan de Vries is in Amsterdam and has been following the story for us. Stefan, just what prompted Shell's decision to leave the Netherlands?
Well, there was actually no real reason to leave the country right now. In 2005, the company merged permanently between Royal Dutch Shell and the oil company, and it created a very complex structure with two different shares. So the board of directors said that this was a permanent situation, that they had to unravel this complicated company to be more competitive. But maybe the real reason is somewhere else, and that's here in the Netherlands, or more precisely in The Hague, where the Dutch government, led by Prime Minister Mark Rutte of the Liberal Party, was planning on scrapping the dividend tax. A couple of years ago, the Parliament voted against scrapping this, and that has probably triggered Shell to move from The Hague to London because the company didn't want to pay any dividend tax anymore. And so that marks the end of over a century of this Anglo-Dutch company, Royal Dutch Shell.
So what are the benefits from being based in London?
Well, the economical benefit is that the company is now one single company with a very simple share structure. Another advantage is, of course, is that dividend tax does not exist in the UK. So all the dividends paid by Shell in the UK are not taxed. And then there's another reason. Shell was convicted by a court in The Hague to cut its CO2 emissions by 45% in 2030. Shell appealed, but it made it very difficult for the company to stay any longer in the Netherlands, although the judgment could count for the whole world. So the benefit is now today purely economical, but it will have some long-term effects as well, because Shell has to transform into an environmentally friendly company, and that is one of the challenges the company is facing now.
Stefan de Vries in Amsterdam, thank you very much.
Dr. Edward Thomas-Jones is an economics lecturer at Bangor University in Wales. I asked if the move by Shell would have an impact on Amsterdam as a financial centre.
I don't think there's concerns that Amsterdam is losing momentum. Clearly, Amsterdam have been one of the winners from Brexit. We've seen a lot of trading activities move across to the cities, and investors seem to be happy there. Also, the regulator in Amsterdam has been favourable towards investors.
And it's also attracting a lot of new listings. Why are they choosing Amsterdam over, say, London?
It is to do with the flexibility that the regulators have shown. Amsterdam very early on developed expertise in SPACs, and the Amsterdam Stock Exchange has become the main European market for such listings. Also, the depth of the market there, their international reputations, all of these have built up to allow Amsterdam to be a winner in the space in the European market.
And you mentioned Brexit. What impact has that had on Amsterdam?
Well, clearly we've seen equities and derivatives business move from London to Amsterdam, so they've clearly become a winner in that space. But it's also put Amsterdam in the spotlight for investors. It became on their radar that London wasn't the only option in Europe. Amsterdam themselves then have been able to build upon that. Again, their regulators have been flexible. They've also developed expertise in products such as SPACs. And then all of this together has allowed them to succeed in this area.
And we have to mention the pandemic, of course. What impact has that had?
Of course, the pandemic has been an interesting situation in that we have seen governments pump a lot of money into the economies in order to try and combat the pandemic. And of course, some of that has flowed into the stock market. So there has been some benefit there for the Amsterdam stock market from the pandemic because of the way governments have responded.
And with some big tech companies choosing Amsterdam, do you think we'll see it become a hub for that sector?
In the short term, certainly there will be, Amsterdam will benefit there. But we have to remember that London is viewed as being the tech centre for Europe. So I can imagine in the medium or long term, we'll start seeing much more listings back in London